Hello and welcome to the channel. I am here for a list video for you guys. Now for this list video, I'll be going over some bands that I wished I would have gotten into sooner than I did. Now there's many bands that I think could have made this list, such as In Flames or Pantera or Alice in Chains, or even the band Yes as well. But like a lot of these bands, I don't think I would have, felt the appeal about those bands earlier on. But yeah, this is 10 bands I got here that I wished I would have gotten into sooner. So let's go ahead and begin. And I think we'll begin with the band Slipknot. Slipknot is definitely one of those bands that I wished I would have gotten into sooner, especially since there were a lot of people's first metal bands, or at least one of their first. I think I would have really liked these guys if I was, back in the days whenever I first discovered Demon Hunter, because Demon Hunter's debut album is very similar to Slipknot's style, and I know their vocalist was very open about that album being very Slipknot influenced as well. So I do wish I would have gotten into Slipknot sooner, but one of the things that, of course, held me back from checking them out was because, well, they were in the mainstream. I didn't want to be into that popular metal. But that wasn't really an open mind to have at the time. So yeah. I do wish I would have gotten into them sooner. I got into them in 2017, so Slipknot definitely had to make the list. So next up, we got Killswitch Engage. Now, I feel like Killswitch Engage is also a band that a lot of people get into during their early days of getting into metalcore. But for me personally, no. They were actually one of the later metalcore bands I've gotten into. For the longest time, I've just really struggled getting into these guys, and I don't know how to describe my problem for them, but my issue was basically about them was they sound like a B-side metalcore band, like they're a band that only plays B-side metalcore songs, I guess, they didn't have those like really big, epic, larger-than-life choruses like a lot of other metalcore bands have, such as I Lay Dying or Demon Hunter, or, choruses like them that really caught your attention. And Killswitch Engage never really did that for me, and that really wasn't the best mindset to have at the time. And I guess I just had to come to the conclusion that, not everything has to be unique in order to enjoy it, or larger than life, you could say. But Killswitch Engage I got into around 2016, but I am glad I got into this band regardless, but I do wish I would have gotten into them sooner, because they're definitely one of the best metalcore bands of all time. So let's go ahead and move on to number 3. Now, number 3, we got the band Death. Now, I remember when I first checked out these guys, I only thought that they were alright. My biggest problem with them was I just thought that they were just generic, like they were just a boring band to listen to, like there was really nothing special about them, I guess. Again, not the best mindset to have, especially since they're a pioneer of their own subgenre. But yeah, I do like the band Death now. I think they're a really great band, and I think this band has never released a bad album, and definitely a band I wish I would have gotten into sooner. But yeah, Death had to make the list. At number 4, we got Iron Maiden. Oh boy, this is a big one for me, because Iron Maiden is probably one of my favorite bands nowadays, and yeah, for sure, they're definitely one of my favorite bands. Obviously, one of the reasons that kept me from getting into Iron Maiden sooner than I did was obviously due to my close-mindedness to the 80s style of metal and the classic style of metal. Because it was only just a few years ago that I started to have a more open mind to the classic material that metal had to offer. But of course, since they came out in the 80s, I was like, nope, keep that away from me, But I do wish I would have gotten into Iron Maiden sooner. I at least wish I would have gotten into them around when their last album, The Book of Souls, came out, because I didn't even become a fan even when that album came out, and I never really got to experience the hype, which is kind of why I want Iron Maiden to come out with a new album, so that I can experience that hype, since I never got to whenever their last album came out. But I am glad that I did get into Iron Maiden. I definitely prefer their 80s stuff over pretty much all the other decades of their material, but definitely a great band. So Iron Maiden, I wish I would have gotten into them sooner. They definitely had to make the list. I believe I got into them around 2016. So next up, at number 5. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit on this one because this is actually 3 bands. And the reason that I'm going to put 3 bands here at number 5 is because they are all in the big 4. They are Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax. Yeah, I definitely wish I would have gotten into these bands a lot sooner. Metallica was actually my first band, when it came to, classic metal. Um, Even though I don't really like using that term as if it's its own subgenre, but you guys know what I mean. They were the first, band in the classic era that I've actually gone into, and yeah, I really liked Metallica whenever I got into them in 2016. Megadeth I didn't get into till 2017. Anthrax I didn't get into till 2018. Yeah, as you can see, I'm definitely late to all these bands, and I wish I would have gotten into them sooner. And I know Metallica is a lot of people's gateway bands into metal, so yeah, kind of ridiculous on my part. um, but of course, like I said about Iron Maiden, I just had the closest mind to the classic style of metal and thrash metal and new wave and all that stuff. So these 3 bands in the big 4 definitely had to make the list. Okay, so next up at number 6, we got Led Zeppelin. Now, Led Zeppelin I didn't get into till 2018. I just can't imagine getting into these guys sooner than I did, but I really do wish I would have gotten into them sooner than I did. Like, I would have called them, oh, this is boring dad rock, if it was 2015 and I was checking them out, that's probably what I would have said about them. Like, oh, this band is nothing great. Ew. But I do hate that I had that mindset, But I got into them in 2018, and I do wish I would have gotten into them a lot sooner, for sure. So Led Zeppelin definitely had to make the list, and they were the first actual classic rock band that I gotten into. Besides, a few songs by AC/DC and Aerosmith, there's a few songs by those 2 bands I used to like back in the day, but not to the extent that I went with Led Zeppelin. But you know what I mean. So Led Zeppelin was definitely worthy of being on the list. Okay, so next up we got the band Rush. Now Rush, I think, is another one of my favorite bands for sure. Definitely one of the best, maybe even the best progressive rock band, and yeah. With how many albums these guys have, they definitely have a lot to offer. Definitely a band I wish I would have gotten into a lot sooner. I believe I got into them in late 2018, so yeah, about a year by now, but I definitely wish I would have gotten into them a lot sooner. But like I said before about a lot of the other, classic artists, I had the closest mind when it came to, 70s, 80s, all that stuff. But yeah, Rush is definitely a band I wish I would have gotten into sooner, but I am glad that I really like them now, though, for sure. Okay, so next up at number 8, we got Dream Theater. Now, Dream Theater is another band that I got into in 2018, and I do remember checking these guys out in 2016. That was actually the first time, hearing about them and checking out their music and things like that. And yeah, I am glad that I got into them, when I did last year, but I think my problem with them in 2016 was they just didn't meet up to my standards. Like, they weren't the type of style of metal that I liked, because I was mainly into, like, melodeath and metalcore and stuff like that. Basically stuff that's not as good as prog, but yeah, I kind of hate myself for that, to be honest, because I wish I would have dove deeper into them, but of course they didn't meet up to my standards back then. They weren't edgy enough. But yeah, I am glad that I did get into them regardless, though. I mean, better late than never. So Dream Theater definitely had to make the list, and they're definitely a band I definitely don't regret getting into, for sure. Next up is another band that I got into in 2018, and that is the band Tool. Now, I know there's a lot of people that have been Tool fans for a long time, and I know it's really rare for people to discover Tool in 2018 like I did. And I'm glad that I did get into them, but and I think if I were to discover these guys any sooner than I did, I probably wouldn't have liked them, even though I wished I would have liked them before. I guess, of course, I would have had that same complaint that a lot of people have with Tool, and it's that, of course, they're a boring band to listen to. I mean, sure, they're a boring band if you compare them to bands like, bands in melodeath and metalcore and stuff, and, all this extreme stuff, and, like, stuff that has more energy, you could say, but you just have to go into them with the right mindset, and that's what I did, and it worked out very well for me, and I'm glad that I did get into them. So yeah, Tool is definitely a fantastic band, and I am glad that I did get into them regardless because, well, they're one of the best bands of all time, I think. So yeah, Tool is definitely a band I wish I would have gotten into a lot sooner than I did. So yeah, they definitely had to make the list. So we're here at the last band on this list at number 10. Now, at number 10, we got Queensryche. Now, I didn't even hear about Queensryche until, I believe it was late 2018. I heard about Queensryche, but I didn't get into them till 2019. So, yeah, and that's kind of surprising that I didn't even hear about them sooner, since, there are 1980s bands. And, 1980s bands are, more popular than the modern bands for good reason, too. But I don't know, this band just kind of slipped under my radar, I guess. I don't know, but I am glad that I did get into them earlier this year. But, yeah, Queensryche definitely had to make the list, and they're one of the best progressive metal bands of all time. Well, there you have it, guys. That is my list of bands that I wish I would have gotten into sooner than I did. Let me know what you guys think. Are there any bands that you wished you would have gotten into sooner? Feel free to let me know, and let me know what you guys think of my list. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Take care.